Hi guys, okay, welcome to Breton Country Park, just up the road from me. And I've come down here today with my mate Gary. Say hello, Gary.
Hello.
No, you're supposed to say hello, Gary.
Hello, Gary.
Right, let's try that again. I've come down here today with my mate Gary. Say hello, Gary.
Hello, Gary.
Yeah, good stuff. Because what I want to do is have a look at these, okay? And this little magnetic filter set from K&F Concept. And I mean, I was quite intrigued by magnetic filters, but they always seemed a bit too expensive, and I'm very set in my ways with the filters that I use, because for the most part I used to use the Lee filter system, but then I used these, which are basically ultra low profile screw-in filters by Irix, and I do find these exceptionally good. But the only thing is, when you're out in the cold and the wet and everything's uncomfy, and if you're also wearing gloves, you cannot very easily unscrew and screw on filters. So magnetic filters, they always seem like a potentially good idea for me. And I've just noticed in the screen that I've got an orange life belt over my head. So if I just sort of go that way, there we go, now I've blocked it. It's probably better looking than I am, but well, there you go. So this filter system, I'll put a close-up of it on the screen, basically consists of a nice little pouch, as you can see. And if we open it up, it's got a little magnetic catch and a nice zip round it, which does appear to be waterproof. We have 4 components. We have a UV filter. That's what I think of them. I shouldn't really say that, should I? But they are pretty useless. We have the magnetic filter holder, which is basically the only thing that screws in this entire setup. And we have a 10-stop ND, and we have a circular polarizer. Does it polarize? Yes, it does, because now I can't see my monitor for this video camera, and now I can, yes. Okay, now just a word about polarizers. This is a circular polarizer. You'll know you get linear polarizers as well. Well, all a circular polarizer is a linear polarizer with a quarter wave plate stuck on the back. And you'll know if you're looking through a circular polarizer the right way, because now I can see stuff, now I can't, because I've got the polarizer pointing at the camera. But if I turn it round and I keep going and turning, I can still see the camera, because the surface of the filter, which is pointing at the subject and letting the light in, is the quarter wave plate. Okay, so the questions that might arise from these filters is, are they any good? Because what happens when you put a filter on your camera lens? You put in a piece of glass in front of your camera lens, which the bloke who designed the lens didn't count on you doing. Yeah, so they need to be optically correct. They also need to be very, very low to virtually zero internal reflectance, and I've already done internal reflectance tests on these filters, and they are exceptionally good. So the important thing is color cast, and I'm just going to put those down a minute, because there's a big trend to use ND filters now, full ND filters, and they were started off really and truly with this thing, which is the Lee Big Stopper, and its little sister, the Little Stopper. So they were 10-stop and 6-stop respectively. Now, what does a 10-stop filter do? If your shutter speed is 1/30th of a second, you put a 10-stop on and your shutter speed will immediately become 30 seconds, which on most cameras is the longest automatic or automatically controlled time interval you can get for your shutter. So if you're putting a 10 stop on where your camera unfiltered was saying you need a 1/10 of a second or something like that, then you're going to have to start using a bulb and a timer. So, the internal timer in your camera. But anyway, what I want to do is to do 2 tests. One, basically to see if these filters make any difference to the sharpness, and also to see if these filters have a heavy colour cast, because this Lee Big Stopper used to have a very, very strong blue cast. Okay, so what we're going to do is do those tests, but momentarily. When the lovely Wendy from K&F got in touch with me, hello Wendy, how you doing? She asked me what size of these filters did I want. Well, here's the thing. I use quite a few different lenses for my landscaping. I use very, very occasionally a Nikon 200-500 for really long shots. I've not got that with me today because it's just too big. And I forgot to bring it, and Gary didn't remind me. So basically, that is a 95mm filter threaded lens. My other favoured lens, or one of my other favoured lenses, is this, which is the Irix 15mm f2.4. Now this also has a 95mm filter thread on it, and I am now being surrounded by quacking mallard and a couple of swans because they've all come to be fed. So I'm going to compete with them over the mic. Right, so that's 95mm. And my real favourite lens for doing wide angle landscapes is this, a 21mm Zeiss. Now the only thing is, this is an 82mm thread. I think that's right, isn't it, Gary? 82? Yeah, okay. So that's 82mm. Now, you don't have to buy different kits for different lenses. One of my other favourite lenses is, and it's possibly the most underrated but really useful combo lens, a 24-70, in this case f2.8, and that is a 77mm ring or millimetre filter thread. And we'll just put that back in there. And then my final one is this 70-200 f4, which is a 67mm thread. Okay, so here's what I said to young Wendy. I said, Wendy, send me the 95mm kit. And she said, well, the only thing is, we only do a 10-stop ND in the 95mm kit to date. So I hope they actually do some slightly lower ones. A 6-stop and a 3-stop would be quite handy. So what I did was I said to Wendy, I said, all right, send me what you've got in 95mm. Because if I get this little pouch out of here, for next to nothing, you can buy a spare 95mm lens cap off eBay or Amazon, and you can buy these large step up rings. In this case, this is 67 to 95mm in one single step. It's very thin, as you can see. So fundamentally, what I can do is I can fit these 95mm filters on across all my lenses that I use for landscaping for what, 12 to 15 quid a lens. So I have one to put them onto my 70-200 f4. This one here is 77 to 95, so that in one step will allow the filters to fit to my 24-70. And here we have 82, is it 82? Yes, 82 to 95, so I can fit them on my Zeiss 21mm. And the nice thing about using filters that are, there's that orange thing again over my head, about using filters that are bigger than your lens filter thread size, is you can stack them with a diminished risk of vignetting, okay? Just basically because they're wider. Right, so what we're going to do is now get on with these tests and test out the sharpness and the colour shift, if any, with these circular polarizers and neutral density or 10-stop neutral density filters. So I think we best crack on now, don't you? Hit the red button again, go. Are we recording audio? Yes, we are. Yeah. Woohoo. Okay, I'm going to have to keep this short and sweet, guys, because I've got a pair of angry swans with cygnets behind me. I'm not upsetting them, but people keep coming down and feeding them and causing ructions. But anyway, as you can see, I've got the old Nikon D800E sat here with the 21mm Zeiss ZF2 f2.8 wide angle on. And we've got the step-up ring on, and we've got the magnetic filter ring on. So if I just press record up here so you can see what's going on my live view screen, with a bit of luck this will work. Okay, so hopefully on my live view screen you can see that I've got this shot set up and I've got a data colour checker, quite a big thing, sat on a tripod in front of me, and we've got this nice scene over the water, well, nice-ish, and we've got some ripple on the water and we've got some reflection. So what I'm going to do is take a standard shot, okay, with no filters on. This will act as our control, okie dokie, and there's our control shot. So now what I'm going to do is first of all put on the circular polarizer. So we'll just reach forward in front of the lens and just make sure we can rotate it, and that's it. And it's held on there as snug as a bug in a rug. So even though it's bright and sunny, I'm going to just try to polarize this scene as best I can. And the sun's actually at quite a bad angle, so I'm just looking at the histogram, and I think that's just about as polarized as I can get. And you'll notice we're actually now the stop under. So in these conditions, this circular polarizer is knocking the stop or there or thereabouts off the exposure. And so all I'm going to do is to shorten my shutter speed until I get back up to where I need to be, and I'll call it right about there, and we'll take the shot to test the colour shift of the polarizer, okay, because I can use that big grey square on the colour checker. And there we go, and I've got a recording light still blinking up there, so we should be all right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the polarizer off. You see I'm not even looking what I'm doing really, and we'll put that back in its little bag, okay, and we will get the 10 stop out. This is going to be interesting. What we'll do is we'll put the 10 stop on, just give it a little bit of a wiggle, and there it is, it's on. And so I'm going to go back into my live view, and now you can see I'm as black as the coal house at midnight, aren't I? So what I've got to do is open up to a much slower shutter speed and see what we can get back. And there we go. So we are now down at 5 seconds, which would be about right from where we were from the standard shot. Okay, the 0 shot, the one without the polarizer. So all we're going to do now is take a shot now, just to see how much it will smooth the ripples out on the water. And there we go. So can you all see that? There's the shot with a certain amount of ripple removed from the water. Now then, here's the thing. A lot of you are going to want to use the circular polarizer with an ND of some description or other. Okay, now then, I'll give you a bit of a tip, because what you might be tempted to do is to get that circular polarizer and slap it on the front of there. Well, the only thing is, you're not going to be able to see if you're polarized or not, are you? So you'd be tempted to then put the ND over the top of the polarizer. Not always a good idea, because in certain circumstances, lighting conditions, etc., etc., you can sometimes get a colour shift caused by the interference from the quarter wave plate and the ND feeding the light in beforehand. So really what you need to do is, if you're going to use an ND and the circular polarizer together stacked, always put the circular polarizer on the outside. Okay, so what we've got to do is take the 10 stop off. You can see how good these magnetic the magnetic grip is, and we'll put the circular polarizer back on for a moment, and we will take the shutter speed back to where we've got our decent exposure. And I'm just looking at the sandbar reflections. There you go, that's unpolarized, and now I can roughly see where the sand is underneath the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this filter and hold it in that orientation. I'm then going to put the, excuse fingerprints all over the filter, you wouldn't do it like that. So there's the ND on, and now all I'm going to do is put the polarizer back on in that orientation. You could wind your live view open and jack the ISO up so you can get a clear view on the back of the camera. Well, that's going to be incessantly difficult because noise is going to interfere. And looking at stuff on the back of the camera now, the light out here is awful. And I've now got Mr. and Mrs. Swan and all their offspring just in front of me, just daring me to make a cock up and upset them. So there we go. So if you remember what the exposure compensation was for that ND, and then also the circular polarizer, what we're going to have to do is wind our exposure all the way back, lengthening that shutter speed, and just around about there, 13 seconds. Maybe I'll take it to 15 seconds. And yes, the swans are here, so we'll just wait for the swans to go. If that's something they think they could possibly accommodate me with. Go on, like girls and boys. Go on. Go on. Oi, Dad. Oh dear, he's not listening to me. This is Dad over here, if you could see. And go on. Go away. Go on. You can do it. And there's a clever chap. Yeah, there we go. So what we're going to do, I'll probably take a couple of shots here. And just wait for this meter to settle down. I actually should probably go to 13. And there we go. And I reckon that will just about do for the shooting tests to see if we get colour shifts and how much the colour shifts are going to be. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pack up here, and I'm going to go back to the office, and I'm going to do a couple of tests to check for vignetting, which, I mean, it will happen if you, especially if you stacked all three filters together on the lens mount size that you're actually using. I'm cheating because I just use big filters on small lenses. So and the other thing we'll do is we'll do a sharpness test and see how much any of these filters actually affect the sharpness of your pictures. So I'll see you back at the office in a bit. Yes, we will. Say ta-ra, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Say ta-ra, Gary.
Ta-ra, Gary.
Good man. See you later, guys. Okay, here we are. We're back in the office now, and we've got the shots that we've just taken out on location up here in Lightroom on the computer, and I've already done the sharpness and the vignetting tests as well, so we'll look at those in a moment. But here's our wonderful waterscape that we shot. Yes, wonderful. Wonky horizon and everything. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything fancy to these. If you remember, I did say we probably overexposed this by 1/3 of a stop in comparison to the other 3 test shots. So straight away I'm going to drop the exposure on this one, 0.33 minus. Okay, so that's that done. And then what I'm going to do is systematically white balance them, and I'm just going to use this square here, 3rd one along. So we are going to go and hit the W key for white balance, and we will just click there. We'll move to the next image, we'll hit W, we'll go white balance, next image, W, white balance, and the last image, W and white balance. Okie dokie. Right, so they are pretty much all at the same sort of EV value, not quite. If we go back to this shot here, which is our control shot, remember, with no filters on, this is now sitting at 4,700 Kelvin. Forget the tint, and we are just got a little tiny gap at the highlights end. So if we come to the next image, this is the one shot with the polarizer, that's 4,600. So you can see it's got a slight Kelvin shift of, you know, around about 100k, which I don't find too objectionable at all. In fact, the overall general effect of the CPL on colour is pretty damn good, I think. Now if we go to the ND 1000, the 10 stop, you can see that we've got 5,000. Okay, so we've got a bit more of a stronger shift, but we've sort of underexposed that a little bit. So I'm just going to get the I'll do it with the exposure slider. We'll just move that up until we've just got a little tiny gap there, and then we'll come to the filter combo, which is the polarizer plus the ND 1000, and you can see collectively it's not much of a colour shift at all, and we will just touch that over a little bit, just like that. Okay, so if we scoot back, there's our control reference shot at 4,700 now, plus a tint of 11, but don't worry about the tint so much. It's the main temperature that we're looking at to see how much of a colour shift we get. So if we take that as colour balanced, 4,700, the CPL gives us a drop of 100 Kelvin, and the ND filter gives us a slight increase up to 5,000 Kelvin, and collectively the 2 filters give us 4,900 Kelvin, or there or thereabouts, which isn't very far away from the control shot, not really in the grand scheme of things. So the CPL is slightly cooling, the ND 1000 is slightly warming. How this compares with other filter sets, I mean, I don't really know, and I don't really care. All I know is that the performance of these filters with regard to colour shift is excellent. That's what I call excellent. And the filters that I regularly use, when I use filters that is, the IRIX do not perform quite so well. Their colour shifts are a little bit stronger. So colour shift wise, these K&F filters are, I would class is excellent. Alright, so now let's go on to look at the sharpness test. Okay, so I've already just transposed basically the colour temperature settings from the previous set to this set, and you can see it's just a highly detailed shot of a brick wall covered in rendering, and so it presents a really good target to see how these filters will affect sharpness. You will notice that as I scroll through these images, they tend to jump about a bit because Spot the bearded fat git, who actually left his VR turned on the 200-400 f4 that I used for taking these shots. So what we're going to do is go into a compare view, and for that we need to be in the dev module. And so what we're going to do is click on the CPL one, go into the reference view, and so we've got the control image here on the left as the reference image, and here is the CPL shot. I can't see any indication of a degradation in sharpness because I'm using a very sharp lens on a sensor which is geared to the resolution. It matches the resolution of the lens very, very well. And that's something a lot of you don't take into account when you go and buy your new camera or your new lens. You don't check that the resolution of your lens, in a particular lens, suits a particular sensor. Quite a technical thing that, but well, there you go. Anyway, we've got the reference on the left, CPL on the right, and I can't see any degradation in sharpness. Let's go and look at the 10 stop in comparison to the control, and there you go. And you can see if I open the details panel, all I'm using is default sharpening on everything. Okay, so they look equally sharp. Now comes the biggie, the combo of the CPL and the 10 stop. So let's go and have a look at that. And there we go. I mean, goodness gracious me, you know, let's just touch it across a little bit so we're looking at pretty much the same area. I could do with touching this reference shot, the control shot down, so you can see that little hole. I mean, for goodness sake. And you can see they've all got the same level as default sharpening on in Lightroom. I just think the performance of these is excellent. You could, if you thought that something was not quite as sharp as it could be, you could always just go and put another couple of points on it and just sharpen it up a little bit more. But to be quite honest with you, it's not something I would worry about. So the last test we're going to look at is the vignetting test. Okay. Now, a lot of you are going to think, what the hell is that, Andy? Well, these are what you call flat field or calibration frames. And these are the absolute best way of photographing vignetting. All right, so what we're looking at here is the vignette control reference shot, which is just a flat field or calibration frame shot with the IRIX 15mm f2.4 Blackstone lens. And of course we've got it still on the D800E full frame camera, and what you can see there where it sort of goes a little bit creamy, because I've not colour balanced these, where it just goes a little bit creamy towards the edge, that is the natural vignetting of the lens. This is why you use calibration frames when you're doing architectural work or whatever, because if you subtract this frame from your, what you call your light frame, which is your actual photograph, you actually remove all the lens vignetting as opposed to using the vignette control in Lightroom. Well, anyway, that's a more technical term. If you remember, I'll put a link in the description panel below somewhere to a video I did quite a while ago on making and using flat field or calibration frames, and they're also a vital component of doing proper Milky Way and astrophotography, but that's all by the by. So this is the flat field frame shot with the IRIX 15mm with no filters attached in front of the lens whatsoever. I'm not showing you any photographs before that have been shot through my IRIX filters, but I'm going to do that now because this is, I wouldn't say it's important because it isn't, but it's slightly interesting. And so if I come over to this one, this is the IRIX CPL and the IRIX ND10 shot at f5.6, and you can see we have a little bit of vignetting in the corners. Now the important thing is, and the reason I'm showing you this is just in case you don't know, is that any vignetting caused by filters or things making an incursion into the lens field of view, which if you put too many filters on the front, that's what they'll do. The rendering of that vignetting increases as you stop down the aperture. So that's at f5.6. If I, however, switch to f11, that's what we get. So that is the f11 rendering of the vignetting caused by the IRIX ND10 and CPL combo, or filter pack combo. Alrighty, now let's go and have a look at the vignetting caused with the K&F combo of CPL and ND1000 or 10 stop. And here it is. You'll notice straight away that it is a little bit more pronounced. Now, first of all, why is it a little bit more pronounced using the K&F filters than the IRIX filters? Very simply because the K&F filters, or the K&F filter combo of CPL and ND1000 are actually, funnily enough, 0.28 of a millimetre thicker, or deeper if you like, than the comparable IRIX filters. So that's why the vignetting is a little bit more pronounced, because the front edge of the filter combo is it's making a slightly greater incursion into the field of view of the lens. Now that level of vignetting at f11 on this IRIX 15mm wouldn't particularly bother me, because I would just rebuild the corners in Photoshop using either content aware fill or generative AI fill, as we can now do in Photoshop Beta, and we'll soon be able to do in normal iterations of Photoshop. So there you go. But you see, if we go back to the colour ones and we look at the combo shot here, I would expect the same level of vignetting at f11 from this filter set if it was using 82mm filters in this 82mm filter thread lens. So yeah, it might cause a bit of a problem and need me to do some rebuilding work in the corners, or if the corners weren't vital, you just crop the image. But at the end of the day, there's no vignetting in this image whatsoever, simply because I'm using 95mm filters on a 95 to 82 step up ring. So there's the validation of my method of using bigger filters than the lens will take. So with that level of vignetting on this lens, we were getting, with the two filters, we were getting some very harsh black corners that have obviously got no detail in them. But with one filter, I just get a slight darkening veil in the corners, but I can see detail all the way through it. So I can basically correct that with, if you like, a vignette correction. Or, like I said, I can rebuild it with generative AI fill or even content-aware fill over in Photoshop. But switching out to a situation or a scenario where you're using a wide-angle lens, in this case an 82mm filter thread, 21mm lens, with 95mm filters, you know, I mean, you just completely negate any problems of vignetting. They're just gone. It is of no consequence to you whatsoever. So there you go. So what do I think of these filters? Firstly, internal reflection. I can't see any. So they get a big tick and 5 stars performance there. Sharpness fall off. With the CPL, I can't see any. So big tick, 5 stars there. Brilliant. The ND, I can't see any sharpness fall off using the ND. So the same, again, excellent performance. The combo of CPL and 10-stop ND, or ND1000 as we like to call it, I don't have a problem with. I just cannot see a sharpness problem. If you have a problem, it will only be very, very slight, and a little bit of judicious localized sharpening, again in Photoshop or wherever, will easily rectify any problem you might have, but I can't see any problem with my images that I've taken while testing these filters. So would I recommend K&F magnetic filters? On the basis of what I've seen, their performance is just first class. So I suppose in a way I would recommend them because they represent such excellent value for money. And so, you know, anyway, if you're interested, don't forget, go ping the link in the description panel below. Well, that will take you to this particular 95mm filter kit over on the K&F UK website. But, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, where you access the K&F website from. If you use the order code Andy Asprey with 2 capital A's, you will get 10% discount. Yes, you will. Very nice of those guys over at K&F. Very nice of Wendy. Yes, hello, Wendy. So there you go. All in all, I'm well impressed, and K&F aren't having them back. I will not give them back. If they want to come over all the way from wherever it is they're in and come knock on my door, I might even put up a fight then. Yeah, I really do like them, and they will be a permanent fixture in my camera bag for any time I go out doing landscape photography. I just wish they'd make a 6-stop ND or a 5-stop ND as well to go with them. And as for what I said about UV filters or lens protect filters, it just annoys me no end. Do you want to see what the best lens protector is? It's one of these. Brilliant piece of kit. And you know what? Usually you get them free with your lens when you buy it. So I've got no patience with UV or lens protection filters from a lens protect point of view, and from a UV inhibitor point of view, they're totally unnecessary, because you have way more accurate and way more efficient UV cut filters inside the facing filter pack in your digital sensor inside your digital camera. Yes, you do. Alrighty. But hey, it's part of the kit, so that's that. Tis what it is, guys. So until the next time, I hope you've found that review useful. And I don't think you'll be disappointed at all if you purchase some of these K&F Nano X magnetic filters. And one thing I did forget to mention earlier on in the video, if you're working out in wet weather or cold weather, you do have a tendency to find problems with taking your filters off your lens because the threads tend to get stuck together, and it can be a real major pain in the you-know-what. But of course, with magnetic filters, it doesn't really matter what temperature they're at. They just pull off and clip on. Pull off and clip on. I mean, no-brainer. And so there you go. This is what I thought when I first heard about magnetic filters. I thought they've got to be a good idea. But nobody got in touch with me. No, and I will never do a review of something I've had to buy. Not really. It'd have to be something pretty special for me to do that. So there you go. But anyway, thanks a lot to Wendy over at K&F for sending me these filters. They will always be in my camera bag, as I've already said. And thanks again on everybody else's behalf for making that discount code available. All right. Thanks a lot, Wendy. Thanks a lot, K&F. Thank you guys for watching this video. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Toodaloo.